Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. The chair may ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic. And at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. Individuals will be allotted 5 minutes to speak or 10 minutes for a group as per our procedure bylaw. If the meeting is recessed, callers will be put on hold until the meeting reconvenes, with the exception at noon, where callers will be asked to call back in. This helps with call quality. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. We also ask all attendees to please mute their devices to reduce disruptions to the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
I just request that we move 2.1 to the end of 3.5. I understand there's quite a few people that are waiting for some of those land use changes.
Okay, so we will move agenda item 2.1 to follow agenda item 3.5. Any other additions or changes? If not, a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. I will just ask if there are any new notices of motion. Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 3.1, bylaw 2025-05. I'll call for a motion to open the public hearing.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Good morning, everyone. As per Section 192 of our Procedure Bylaw 2025-02, the public hearing will be conducted in the following order. First, we'll hear a staff report by our administration. Then we'll hear a presentation by the applicant, if they choose. Then we'll have presentations by the public in support of the proposal. Then we'll have presentations by the public in opposition of the proposal. There will then be an opportunity for a rebuttal presentation by the applicant, limited only to the comments read or heard in opposition to the proposal. Then there will be final questions of administration, followed by the closing of the public hearing. The applicant will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Any individuals supporting or opposing the proposal will have up to 5 minutes to speak, and any groups of individuals will have up to 10 minutes to speak. The applicant will then have a maximum of 10 minutes to present their rebuttal. If there are any questions relating to the process, please refer to our procedure bylaw. Can administration please verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions that were not included in the council package?
No.
Thank you. We kindly ask that anybody who would like to speak, please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. Jessica Russell with Planning and Development Services, presenting bylaw 2025-05, which proposes textual amendments to the land use bylaw. The proposed amendments update multiple parts of the land use bylaw to increase clarity of the document. The proposed amendments are separated into 4 appendices addressing different areas of the amendments. Appendix A addresses typos and corrections throughout the land use bylaw by removing unused definitions to promote ease of use and correcting typos found within the regulations for land use districts. The amendments address outdated language specifically involving barrier-free parking and uses specific to quarantine and self-isolation. Appendix A adds regulations to subpart 7.20 special setback requirements to allow for historical setbacks of buildings and structures constructed prior to June 3rd, 2003. The amendments also add a definition for rail spurs and adds the land use as a discretionary use in agriculture, industrial, and natural resource districts to allow for permitting of rail spurs for applications involving rail access. Appendix B addresses updates regarding utilities throughout the land use bylaw. The amendments address redundancy and inconsistencies with the definition and regulations of telecommunication towers. Further, the amendments address redundancy in the regulation of utility services by changing the definition of utility buildings to utility services minor infrastructure to increase clarity. Appendix C addresses updates regarding kennels and animal services in subpart 8.16 and applicable land use districts. Appendix C amends the definition of kennel to animal services, which includes examples of various services including training facilities, daycare operations, grooming and care, and dog parks. Further, the amendment clarifies regulations for animal services by including regulations for animal services as home-based businesses and aligning the uses with existing regulations in the land use bylaw. Lastly, the amendment adds the land use in the industrial general district, which may allow for large animal services facilities in industrial areas of the county. Appendix D addresses updates regarding signs in the land use bylaw, restructuring the definitions and regulations to increase clarity and ease of use. Appendix D restructures the sign regulations to classify signs as 3 types: Type 1 signs, Type 2 signs, and Type 3 signs. Type 1 signs are signs that are small in size, providing general information and direction, aligning with the existing use for signs not requiring a development permit within the land use bylaw. Type 2 signs are temporary or permanent advertisement signs that require a development permit, aligning with the existing use for signs requiring a development permit, which are currently a discretionary use in most land use districts. Appendix D amends allowed uses in the land use districts for Type 2 signs as a permitted use in the select districts, subject to meeting the regulations in subpart 7.18. Type 3 signs are large temporary or permanent signs for advertisement with or without digital features. Type 3 signs align with the existing use for signs requiring a development permit and remain as a discretionary use in the land use district that currently allows for signs requiring a development permit as a discretionary use. Notice of the public hearing was sent in accordance with the MGA. No submissions were received. Administration recommends approval as per the motions provided. This concludes presentation of Bylaw 2025-05, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the presentation? Hearing none, I will call for anyone in support of the proposal. Oh, please go ahead, Councillor Kester.
I don't know when to bring this up, but in that letter that TC wrote, and we have no maps, nothing to show the vast infrastructure in the county. And thinking on it, I think it would be a good thing to have, depending on, say we get a big application like we have on the west side of the county. To do that on the east side of the county could be hard to do because of all the pipelines, gas wells, infrastructure that's there. And I believe we have more miles of pipeline than we have of roads. I don't know what kind of exercise it would be, but I think it would be quite useful for future development. It is our land use. It is constraints on our land use, and I really like the council consider doing something about this. We got computers, we can put an overlay over our maps. We got the potential to do it all. I just don't know how readily available all these pipelines are. I'm sure if we nosed around a little bit, we could find some data on it, someplace that we could use. But I'm certainly in favor of, especially the bigger ones like TC, and there are a few other transmission ones that run through the county. There's different levels and different grades too. Some are 15 feet and some are, I don't know what TC is. It's probably 100 feet. I don't know.
Through the chair to Councillor Kester, are you saying maps to show up in our LUB or just available to applicants so they can track where those, that various infrastructure pipelines, gas lines and that?
It should be noted in our LUB that these are available. They don't have to be, but is there a resource so somebody can see how extensive it is if they are planning a development? I know out in my division, you can't go, I don't think there's any place you can stand and not see gas infrastructure. Every half a mile there's something.
So just through the chair, so funny enough, I was actually at Rocky County and I met with the CAOs of Rocky County and Foothills County. And one initiative that Rocky County actually is undertaking, and it's actually quite impressive, is they are mapping out all of their infrastructure in the county for development. So gas lines, electrical lines, voltage lines, and they have a company out of Edmonton that is doing it for them. It's not in the LUB, but it is a useful tool for developments to like access to understand what they can and can't develop. So that would be something for sure that we can undertake. Probably doesn't belong in the LUB, but it's something very interesting anyways.
And through the chair to Councillor Kester, most of the underlying, we do have a layer in our map systems that show where the pipelines are, and if there aren't any, we try to locate them and work with our GIS group to have that layer added. But rather than noting it into the LUB because it could change, we could add something on our applications when they submit, or because we circulate, and that's how we try to find out if there's any pipelines missing through that process. But we could note either on an application package or on our website that we can help with mapping and locating where infrastructure is. They do reach out to us in advance of making applications.
It'd be more of an information thing for developers, just before they sink a bunch of money in, or for staff to realize that if this thing is going to be a mile long, fitting it in could be a real obstacle.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I looked at that letter too, and I just thought it'd be, originally I thought, same as you, it was a good idea, but then I thought ultimately the developer is responsible for knowing what's on the land they're going to develop. So I go back to call before you dig, first call. That's one of the first things anybody ever tells you is go get the locates. That's a free service that marks everything out. And then from there you decide where you're going to go. And then if you're trying to overlap somebody else's information into ours, what if it's out of date? I mean, there's so many different liability things. That's what I think of. Ultimately, it's up to the developer to figure out what's on the land that they're looking to do. That's their due diligence, I would think.
Yeah, appreciate the comments. As staff noted on page 41, the recommended amendments were beyond the scope of those considered at this time to address pressing concerns related to relevancy, accuracy, and clarity of the LUB. But I do think that it would be prudent to bring the letter from TC Energy back maybe to a committee of the whole or to a future council meeting and get some recommendations from administration and how we could integrate the recommendations and requests made in the letter either into the land use bylaw, other planning processes, our online mapping, that kind of thing. I do have a map at home. I don't think I have it digitally that shows the pipelines, and it is striking how many there are throughout the entire county. It is absolutely remarkable. It would also need to be time-stamped, obviously, to the point about just keeping it refreshed or current and mitigating that liability. But I think administration could review the TC Energy letter following the consideration of these land use bylaw changes, and if there are additional changes required, those could be brought back at a future time. I can see administration's point that it was just a little bit too much to integrate into these changes, but there are important considerations made in the letter. So let's focus this public hearing on the proposed changes to the land use bylaw, and then perhaps following the closure of the public hearing and consideration of readings of this bylaw, we could consider a motion to direct administration to bring back that letter with some recommendations in how we can address the concerns outlined. Thank you for raising that, though. It was important feedback. I will call a second time for anyone in support of the land use bylaw changes. I'll call a third and final time for anybody in support of the proposed changes to speak. So this is going to be cumbersome. For every public hearing, we're going to call 3 times for those in support and 3 times for those in opposition. It's just part of our procedure by law to ensure that people have an opportunity to speak. I'll now move to anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal. I'll call a second time for anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal. I'll call a third and final time for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal. Having no opposition, there's no requirement for a rebuttal. Are there any final questions of administration? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 2025-05.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-05, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to make textual changes as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion on the motion?
I had one question around the change from kennel to animal services. We talk about on page 25, it says animal services means the development where domestic animals over the age of 90 days are cared for. And I'm not sure why we would specify that, especially when we're talking about breeding facilities.
That was part of the existing definition for a kennel based on research that is fairly common to have that 90-day timeframe in there.
But now we're changing it to animal services, including other things besides kennels. So I think we should strike that bit, to be honest.
Through the chair to council, we could strike the age limit and leave that out and just have an amendment reflecting them.
Would administration like a couple of minutes just to check if it's anywhere else, or have we, I don't know, Councillor Laprise, if you...
That was the only place that I saw it, actually, but...
So we'll maybe just have administration draft the amendment in writing, just so all of council can review that.
It could be amended to strike that age for the bylaw.
Would administration be able to just take that clause and show it, or do we need to, CAO Henderson? I know we're always supposed to see.
Council should see it in writing.
So I'm not sure if, Shanna, if you might be able to, on page 25, just take that first sentence. I don't know how our technology works, if that's possible. We could also break for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Councillor Kester?
I'd like to ask a question.
Certainly.
Ken, the original one, why was that clause in there? Was it because they didn't want pups making noise, or why the 90 days, do you know?
It is, yeah, fairly common for kennels in other municipalities nearby to have that 90-day. I'm not sure on the background on it.
I think that originally it was because, so you need a dog tag. You can't have any more than, is it 3 dogs? Originally, I think it was 2 dogs. And so we only allowed people to have more than that if they had a kennel license. And then we didn't want to, like if your dog just had puppies, we didn't want to say, oh, you're operating a kennel because you have 6 puppies. I think that was originally why. I'm not sure if it's relevant anymore, if we took it out.
Okay, thanks.
Just through the through the chair, perhaps if council has identified any other points of discussion, it might be good just to identify all those first.
Sure.
And then if there are sweeping changes or sweeping questions, then it would be a good opportunity for administration to take those back. The changes today are just textual and nothing super pressing that needs to be passed today. So if we did first reading, then move forward. It doesn't matter to us. Thank you.
I think as long as there's nothing yet, does anybody have any other proposed amendments that would be significant or any other potential changes?
Through the brief to council, we have a red line ready, and if there are any other amendments, because it is textual, the only reason is we were looking forward to having this done because that we are aware of some applicants that would like to get a development permit based on this revision in the land use bylaw.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we have the red line that council can review prior to voting on first reading, I think that's great. And I'm not hearing any other proposed changes, so we'll just wait until that's ready for viewing. Councillor Kester. We can also
Carry
resume
that
debate.
question on one more. What happens when somebody, dog, has some puppies and all of a sudden they got 3 and 6, 9 dogs on their place? And they're just there, yeah. Because I think they used to be, sounds like the 90 days was, you had 90 days to do something about it. But
Through the brief to council, part of the definition helps when someone wants to have a kennel to exceed the number of dogs required. The age limit of the puppies, because sometimes depending on when they sell, as Ms. Hayes had mentioned, we require a dog license. And so it does allow people that are just breeding to sell the puppies. But if they extend that, we do allow for time beyond that before we start exercising on a breeding, whether it's a home-based business or somebody just breeding their puppies, their dogs to get the puppies and then not keeping anything but 2 dogs. We would only monitor that the time limit of the dogs being sold and taken somewhere else before we started enforcing the number of dogs in a household.
yeah, sometimes it's, okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Just while we're getting the red line version. So I think the limit on, just to Councillor Kester's question, the limit on dogs for Wheatland County is within our animal control bylaw. And in that, it does indicate that there's a limit of 3 dogs with a couple of exceptions. But in there, dog is defined as a female or male of any domesticated canine species, actually or apparently 90 days of age or older, and includes a vicious dog. And so I think that's where like the puppy situation would not be in violation of the bylaw because they wouldn't qualify as dogs until they were 90 days old. So I think we're okay with that. That's an aside from the land use bylaw, but just to address that question. And that it makes sense in that context, I think. But in the land use bylaw context, I think it does make sense to strike the language given the rationale. Okay, so administration has the amendment on our screen and it's up on the screens up here. So it's just on that very first line and part of the second line, striking dogs over the age of 90 days. So we do have a motion on the floor for first reading. Is there any objection from anybody on council to making this amendment? Hearing none, I believe it could fall under our procedure bylaw, a friendly amendment if there's unanimous consent of council to consider that. So any other questions or discussion regarding first reading? Hearing none, I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for second reading.
I'll move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2025-05. Pardon me, as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-05.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading. Councillor Kester.
The council moves third reading of bylaw 2025-05.
As amended. As amended, Councillor Kester. Administration is, if you can just use your microphone to indicate as amended.
As amended.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Would council like to put forward a motion to direct administration to bring back some recommended actions based on the TC Energy letter. Councillor Laverson. Oh, try one more time.
I think we should, because if you look at the TC letter, it says that they work with other municipalities. So one of the things I'd want to look at is, do other municipalities have something that they do, and is it in their land use bylaws? So I will move that administration, what do I want to say? Look into the matter of mapping and stuff and bring a recommendation back to council for whether or not it should be included in the land use bylaw and what's the best use of that. Is that clear enough?
We'll just give administration a moment. So the motion is on the screen. Any questions or discussion?
Look good.
Yes, just through the chair. It's the motion's on there now. Should be on this bottom of your screen. If that's good. It's good for administration. We can definitely work with that.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.2, bylaw 2025-08. A council motion to open the public hearing, please.
I will so move.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll follow the same procedure that was reviewed previously. Can administration please verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Through the chair, yes, we can.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions that were not included in the public package?
Through the chair, no, all submissions are on page 57 of the package.
Perfect, thank you.
Good morning, Council. Stefan Kuntz on behalf of administration, here to present bylaw 2025-08 for Council's consideration. The subject lands are located 2.3 kilometers north of the town of Strathmore, immediately southeast of the intersection of Range Road 253 and Township Road 250. The proposal is to redesignate a portion of the subject lands from Country Residential District to Agricultural General District. The intent is to enable a future boundary adjustment that would increase Lot 1 from 4 acres to 10 acres in size, leaving a remainder parcel of 145 acres. Because the proposed new lot would exceed the maximum parcel size for the Country Residential District, redesignation to Ag General is required. The owners of Lot 1 intend to acquire additional land, which is identified here as Lot 2A, to provide extra pasture land for their horses. There are no immediate plans for new buildings or structures, and it will be continued to be used for agricultural purposes. The surrounding area is predominantly agricultural. The closest country residential parcel is directly north, and there is a confined feedlot about 800 meters to the northeast. In terms of development and servicing, both lots have dwelling, accessory buildings, and private sewage treatment systems and water wells on site. Lot 1 has direct access to Township Road 250, and Lot 2 has access to Township Road 250 and Range Road 253. The proposal generally aligns with the municipal development plan, in particular the agricultural policies found in section 3, Application will not facilitate creation of a new parcel, rather it's intended to increase the size of Lot 1 to support agricultural pursuits. It's not anticipated that the redesignation will have any interference with existing land uses in the area. Landowners within a 1 mile radius were notified. Comments have been included in the package on page 57, as well as the agency comments. So that concludes our presentation. We are recommending that all 3 readings to bylaw 2025-08 be granted today. That concludes our presentation, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for administration? Would the applicant like to present? If you can just state your name and address for the record and come to the microphone. Yes, thank you.
If you want to point at anything.
It's Megan Black, Lot 1 landowner. Hi, thank you for having us. We are, or my husband and I and my daughter, she came with, we have been living in the current residence for 14 years now, loving it. We have 4 horses, some 4-H sheep, chickens, and a dog, family of 4. We're basically looking to add some hayland to support our horses. Yeah. We spend most of our time in the mountains packing with the children and enjoy being here. Hope to be here for a very long time to come. And we brought our other person that we're looking to purchase the land off of, the Lot 2 owner. She came with as well in support of us. And yeah, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So we won't ask questions, but we appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a second time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? We'll now move to if there's any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal. I'll call a second time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? Having not heard any opposition, there's no requirement for a rebuttal. Are there any final questions of administration? Hearing none, council motion to close the public hearing, please.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for first reading.
I'll make the motion that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-08. This being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw. Oh no, I'm in the wrong one, are you not? Am I right? No.
2025-08.
Yep, sorry. Amending land use bylaw 2016-01 to redesignate block 1 plan 9811676 within Northwest 34, 24, 25 west of the 4th from country residential to agricultural general district, as shown in the attached Schedule A, forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Are there any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for second reading. Councillor Kester?
The council moves second reading of bylaw 2025-08.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-08.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading. Councillor Kester.
The council moves third reading of bylaw 2025-.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 3.3, bylaw 2025-11. A council motion to open the public hearing, please.
I'll move that council moves to open the public hearing for bylaw 2025-11.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried and will follow the same procedure that was reviewed previously. Can administration please verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA for this public hearing?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. And were there any written submissions that weren't included in the council package?
No.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Jessica Russell with Planning and Development Services, presenting bylaw 2025-11, which proposes to redesignate a plus or minus 1.21 hectare portion of land from the Agriculture General District to the Country Residential District. The lands are located approximately 4.5 kilometers northeast of the town of Strathmore, immediately northwest of the intersection of Range Road 244 and Township Road 250. The application proposes the redesignation of lands from the Agriculture General to the Country Residential District. Lot 1 is currently undeveloped and with proposed use for residence and accessory buildings with private water and wastewater systems. Access is required by a new approach from Township Road 250 to the south. Lot 2 is developed with a farmstead and accessory buildings with private water and wastewater systems. Access is provided by two existing approaches from Range Road 244 to the east and Township Road 250 to the south. The subject parcel is adjacent to the Western Irrigation District Canal running northwest to the southeast portion of the parcel. During the circulation period, the WID requested a 30-meter setback for all permanent structures from the WID property line. The application includes a Phase 1 groundwater supply assessment, a PSTS assessment and site evaluation, and a site-specific stormwater plan supporting the proposed subdivision and residential development of the site. Upon review of the technical reports, the county's third-party engineers confirmed that the diversion of water for household purposes will not interfere with existing agricultural or household users in the area. The county's third-party engineers noted that the proposed location of the wastewater system conflicts with the proposed bioretention point in the submitted site-specific implementation plan. The total area of the development, including the location of the wastewater system, bioretention pond, and applicable setbacks, may be confirmed at the development permit stage. Lastly, the county's third-party engineers noted that the future development of the subject lands may require a geotechnical report at future subdivision and/or development stages. The proposal is consistent with the applicable statutory and non-statutory plans. The proposed redesignation accommodates the proposed residential use, and the proposal does not exceed the 20-acre maximum non-agricultural uses on the quarter section consistent with the agricultural policies within the MDP. The proposal, the pro-subdivision, results in 5 parcels within the quarter section. The proposed parcel size is consistent with the site regulations in the Country Residential District, which is an appropriate district for the proposed parcel size and intended use of the lands. Notice of the public hearing was sent in accordance with the MGA. No submissions were received. Administration recommends approval as per the motions provided. This includes the presentation of bylaw 2025-11, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Would the, oh, Councillor Larson, please go ahead.
If I look at the aerial photos of this, it looks like there's a pivot on that land, and it looks like where the boundary is, it's going to take some irrigated land out of production. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So that's a good idea because,
It is consistent with our agricultural policies, with the number of parcels per quarter section, pardon me, and the amount of non-agricultural land per quarter section being a maximum of 20 acres.
well, that doesn't really answer the question, but okay.
So administration reviews the application and analyzes it based on,
Through the chair, that is correct.
Through the chair to council, the parcel that's showing where the pivot goes into lot 2, that subdivision already exists. So without speaking to the applicant, I can only speculate that it's not changing the area that's being cropped or the pivot. But the new lot that's being created is not where the pivot is.
it's just the small dashed line section.
Okay, so the stuff up at the top then would be staying functional.
Through the chair to Councillor Larson, that's correct.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the RFD? Would the applicant like to present? And if you could just please state your name and your address.
Hello, Council. Thanks for having me. My name is Kyle Sigfusen. I live at 20 Green Meadow Drive, Strathmore, Alberta right now. My mother-in-law is the current owner of the entire land. This subdivision is to grant us, so as a family, we can all move out there, my wife and our 2 kids, on lot 2 to have a agricultural mix with cattle and horses, and then for my mother-in-law and father-in-law to build a homestead on lot 1. The pivot will not be affected at all on lot 2. It's for the northern portion for the grass sod farm, and it will have no impact on this, on its operation through it. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a second time. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll now call for any member of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal. I'll call a second time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? Hearing no opposition, there's no requirement for a rebuttal. Are there any final questions of administration? Council motion to close the public hearing, please.
I'll make the motion to close it. Just a clerical, would be in Division 5, I think, not Division 4. Just, I don't know if that makes any change or difference, but it's not in my division.
I think it's good to note, but it doesn't affect the land use bylaw amendment, so we're good. Council's wishes. Oh, sorry, let's vote on closing the public hearing. I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-11, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw 2016-01 to redesignate plus or minus 1.21 hectares, 3 acres within a portion of Lot 1, Plan 8911972 from Ag General District to Country Residential District as shown in attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for second reading.
I'll move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2025-11.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading.
I'll move that council moves third reading of bylaw 2025-11.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any final questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 3.4, bylaw 2025-12. Council motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. I'll call the question. That motion is carried. And can administration please verify that notice for this public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Through the chair, yes, it was.
Thank you. And were there any written submissions that weren't included in the council package?
No.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Jessica Russell with Planning and Development Services, presenting bylaw 2024-12, which proposes to redesignate the northeast quarter of Section 28, Township 22, Range 20, west of the 4th Meridian, from the Agriculture General District to the DC3 Direct Control District. The lands are located approximately 12.3 kilometers northeast of the hamlet of Clooney, 1.6 kilometers south of the intersections of Range Road 203 and Township Road 230. The application proposes the redesignation of the subject lands from the Agriculture General to the DC3 Direct Control District to allow for the development of additional multi-unit homes for residences and for the continued use of the lands in the colony's operation. The lands are accessed by 2 existing gravel approaches from Range Road 203 to the east. There's existing water supply for the parcel through groundwater wells and dugouts. Wastewater servicing for the parcel is existing by a private lagoon system located to the east of the parcel. The proposal is consistent with the applicable statutory and non-statutory plans. The proposal is consistent with the agriculture policies of the MDP, which aim to protect and minimize fragmentation of existing agricultural lands. Further, the proposal is consistent with policy 3.1.2.4, which encourages the inclusion of value-added operations and accessory uses in the consider of agricultural land use applications. The proposed development is consistent with the site regulations within the DC3 district, which is an appropriate district for the intended use of the lands. The DC3 district provides for a mix of land uses, including multi-unit dwellings, schools, churches, agricultural operations, abattoirs, farm and accessory buildings, market gardens and farm gardens, communal child care facilities, and other compatible uses. Notice of the public hearing was sent in accordance with the MGA and no submissions were received. Administration recommends approval as per the motions provided. This concludes the presentation of bylaw 2024-12, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
On the map, it showed a previous subdivision, I think. In the little key shape, that isn't being rezoned.
That's correct. It's currently within the community service district, and it is for their cemetery, which is existing. It was previously subdivided at an earlier time.
So it's not being rezoned. Okay.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to speak? Is there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a second time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? I'll call a third time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? I'll call a second time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? Hearing no opposition, there's no requirement for a rebuttal. Are there any final questions of administration? Hearing none, a motion to close the public hearing.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-12, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate Northeast 282220 west of the 4th from Agriculture General District to Direct Control District as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for second reading.
I'll move that council move second reading bylaw 2025-12.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-12.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading.
I'll move third reading of bylaw 2025-12.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any final questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Can we get through one more? Just third reading. We'll move to agenda item 3.5. Consideration of third reading for bylaw 2024-34.
Good morning again, Council. Stefan Kuntz with Planning and Development. Here to present bylaw 2024-34. You may recall this from the May 6th council meeting. It was given first and second reading at that time. However, it didn't receive unanimous consent for third, so it didn't get third reading. Just as a quick refresher, this application The lands are 2.6 kilometers east of the hamlet of Nightingale, immediately southwest of the intersection of Range Road 243 and Highway 564. The purpose of the application is to redesignate a 16.52 acre portion of the subject lands from Ag General to Country Residential District in order to create 4.13 acre parcels, 4.13 acre parcels, and a 134.82 acre remainder. There were no concerns with the technical matters or with the policy alignment, and administration recommended approval, and we are again today recommending approval of option 3, and that concludes the presentation. Happy to take any questions. Do you have any? Thank you.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move third reading of bylaw 2024-34, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate plus or minus 6.68 hectares, 16.52 acres within Northeast 2125-24 west of the 4th Meridian from Agricultural General District to Country Residential District as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Let's take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 10:06. Morning. We'll call the meeting back to order and resume our agenda at agenda item number 2.1.
Thank you. Put a notice of motion up on last meeting. Basically looking to reimburse for the purchase of the lands for the Lyalta Community Club and the Lakes Muirfield Homeowners Association. And in doing so, I'm putting this motion forward mostly because we were the developers of the land at the time. And when I look at, as being the representative of the area, looking at how the subdivision or the development was designed as a retirement area, definitely the demographics are not what it is. There's double income families, a lot of kids there. We, looking back on what we've done in the past, we put a outdoor rink on our lands, trying to help them out. And then of course that land is more developable and more valuable as a development. So we said it had to go. They went and looked and actually reached out to some local landowners next to the Lyalta Hall. They were gracious enough to offer the land for sale at a reasonable value. They in turn purchased the land. So I really think that we should cover these costs as if we had to have taken developable land out from within the Lakes of Muirfield boundaries, that land would have been worth substantially more than this. Our one lot right now is currently selling around $200,000. When we were selling them, they were about 60. I think that's what we listed them for. So there's a lot of development coming in. Right now, there's about 200 doors in the subdivision, and then I believe it's over 100 more coming of residents. Average house pays between $6,000 and $7,000 a year in taxes, and that includes school tax and everything too. So it is the fastest growing area in Wheatland County. I'm just really happy that they were able to find an area, revitalize a community club that was the hall that's been there for, I think it's going on its 50th year anniversary, expand it and be able, we built a pathway over to it. The county did. We have a crossing on 264, pedestrian crossing. So this kind of follows up. Be happy to take any questions. Do I have to make the motion again? It was already made at the last meeting.
Last meeting, it was just a notice of motion, so you will have to make the motion today.
So I'll make the motion that council reimburse the Lyalta Community Club and the Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association for the sum of $52,697.37 for the cost associated with the purchase of the 7.5 acres for the expansion of the Lyalta Community Center grounds and recreational green space vision. And I further say that that funds comes from the Muirfield Reserve. Is that what it's called?
I believe so. Lakes and Muirfield Reserve, it's, I'll find out just one second. I know which one you mean, I just want the exact name of it.
Just want to get the wording right.
Lakes of Muirfield Reserve.
Lakes and Merrifield Reserve, and do you know how much is in there right now?
As of December 31st, 2024, it's 8.6 million.
Thank you.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has made the motion. Questions or discussion? Councillor Kester.
Being referred to that we're the developer, we have other hamlets in the county too. We sold our interest in Merrifield, so there is another developer. When we set up this reserve, the number one thing for me was to provide a sanitary sewer service. We haven't got one yet. We've got a grant for it, but we haven't moved on it. And I'm concerned if we don't move soon, the grant could be taken away. There's talk up at Cabinet. They're getting irate by allocating money and people not spending it. And we also, in the interim, said we would take out of that reserve and cover the difference for the sanitary sewer hauling over what other hamlets are charged and the difference of this. So I would like a report on this sanitary sewer. I'm not in favor of doing anything with that money of this magnitude. You're looking at $2 million until that sewer system is operational. I don't think if we lose that grant and we don't get it done, the $8 million ain't going to do it. And what are we going to do? We're going to pin it all on the developer that's coming up? I don't. He'll just walk away and we'll end up with it again, same as we are here. We have to address this, and we have to do it soon, in my opinion.
Can administration speak to the grant that we've received and how it's been deployed?
Certainly, the grant that we have right now does not cover the full cost of the lagoon. It's just the engineering portion, which we are progressing on, looking at potential land and land purchasing right now. We have submitted, every year we do update the province or Alberta Transportation on the progress of the project. We are awaiting to hear back from them under the Water for Life grant of whether they will award the county the balance required for the construction of the lagoon. So we're still waiting for that for this year. But right now we do have a partial grant for the engineering portion and the land purchase portion, but not for the full construction.
Did you say that we have grant to buy land?
Correct, through the chair, the grant that we have currently included an estimate for land purchase.
Have we got any idea where we would like it, or is there, have you talked to any landowners in there?
We do, negotiations are ongoing, so I'm hesitant to share it publicly. However, we could bring a report back to council in camera if council.
Yeah, discussions regarding that should be in a closed session. So to clarify, there are no grants that are not being utilized by the county that have been allocated by the government of Alberta that are sitting idle or that would cause frustration by the government. We're utilizing them for the intended purposes.
This is correct.
Councillor LaPriest.
I also had a question about the reserve. So I was kind of doing a little research, and so that grant, Lakes of Muirfield Reserve, does it include both transportation and infrastructure? I feel like there was two parts to it. And does the 8.6 million that's in it, is that for both, or is that just the infrastructure side of it?
Oh, Brad, you have, okay.
Yeah, through the chair, the proposal in the recent budget was to do the road infrastructure, the sewage infrastructure, as well as some of the additional infrastructure upgrades required around the wastewater treatment plant, fencing, landscaping, essentially just to fulfill all of those developer obligations within the community. Yeah, including all of the above.
So it's all included in that 8.6. That's all of the money for all of those projects.
Through the chair, there would be additional funds that would come into that reserve through the land sale. I think what's in there now is from the lot sales. And so if that land sale does close, those funds would go into that reserve as well, which would then be used towards all of those infrastructure projects that are planned.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I look at it as, I'm in favor of this because it's sort of trying to correct an oversight from previous council that allowed a development where there was no green space put into it. It was strictly considered a seniors operation, like a seniors, people of my age moving out there and that kind of stuff. And we don't play evidently, so we didn't need any green space. So I think it's a relatively inexpensive fix for this. We have a great community out there. All the members of the HOA or of the Muirfield belong to the Lyalta Community Club. The community club has not been this vibrant since probably for 40 years. So for this relatively little amount of money, I'm good with this because it'll keep. I just think it's the sale of less than one of the lots when we sold, or half of one of the lots. So I'm good with it.
Deputy Reeve Class and then Councillor Kester.
Further, years ago, we had a recreation master plan. We talked about pathways, we talked about all the things and what the value is for recreation in an area. And it actually adds value to the area. It gives, and we are a developer. We're a developer up until, well, actually we still are a developer. The papers aren't signed yet. But we are a developer, and that's part of bringing people to the area, which also brings our I guess what council looked at a number of years ago in the full development. It's nowhere near close to that yet. It's about halfway there. So this will further that. It's just so great that there was a hall and land and an existing club in the area that was basically dying over COVID. They had to borrow $60,000 to fix a roof and they didn't have it. And they reported back to me that they paid back over half of that already because of just having the membership of Muirfield there. They're very active. They're very looking at different ways to do things, and you try to support this. If we were the town of Strathmore, for instance, and we had to develop this from our own pocket, imagine the costs to run that. This is run by volunteers, like everything else in the county. It is a kind of a one-off because we were the developer at the time. I realize that I don't treat it the same as other hamlets. We did put the money off to the side for the sewer, for everything. We could have put that into general reserves, but I advocated to have that done, and council supported me on that. So, we are in a good position here with the development and being able to have the funds available. And yes, they definitely need a sewer fix, and there has been reports that I've seen with some of that information already that you're asking.
Councillor Kester.
I'm not against this development. And it was not an oversight from a previous council that we're here now. The previous development was for a boutique golf course, closed community. They didn't even want to be part of the hamlet of Lyalta. They wanted to be gated, and they were approved as such. And it hasn't fulfilled to their fruition, so we're here now changing it now, granted. So when we took this over, my number one concern was the sewage. Sanitary sewage has to be done. And that is number one for the funds. I want to make sure that we have the funds in place and we are moving on this. If we're not going to move on this sewage and we keep doing what we're doing, is it fair on the hamlet of Carsland that they have to accept sewage from Muirfield and hamper their future development? sooner or later, we have to build something. And I don't want to use up all our cash. There's priorities. That was number one priority. So are we going to dip into it now? $2 million looks like to me to fund this recreation project that is needed and could be funded. Would we have enough money still to build the sanitary sewage? Or what is our plan for sanitary sewage? If we're going to truck it for a millennium, maybe that money should be put into a foundation where the interest would pay for it. Because is it fair to the rest of the county we're subsidizing to that extent? I'd like to have these answers.
Councillor Kester, can you clarify what you're speaking to about $2 million?
In this whole application here, you go down here, that's 500 for this. There is.
This is 52,000 is the request that we're
Once you buy the
considering.
land and then they want it graded and then it just goes down. I seen a fund in here for $2 million on the whole thing.
That's exactly.
Where I seen it. I know we're just talking about the purchase of the land now.
But I think we need to be accurate in our comments that we're making. So on page 11, it does have the total cost of the project that the community association is considering for the total project. And that's what Deputy Reeve Clausen was speaking to in terms of community contribution and investment. The only consideration that council is being asked to consider in this motion is $52,000. And I don't think it's fair to say that we're not moving on the sewer system. Our administration is advancing that project by going through the required engineering and exploration of what the most cost-effective and efficient system, both from a capital investment and operating perspective, will be long-term, and investigating options for where we could site some of the necessary parts of that system. I don't think that's fair to say in terms of what our administration is doing. Could administration speak to the process if we did not have adequate reserve funds in the Lakes of Muirfield Reserve? Like, under no circumstance can I see that being pinned on the new developer who's assuming the development. That wasn't part of that agreement. But we do have mechanisms in place that we've used in other communities for infrastructure improvements so that it's not spread out across all taxpayers. It's paid for by the ratepayers that have the benefit of that service. If Edmund can just speak to the mechanisms that council could consider at that time if there was not sufficient grant funding combined with reserve funding to cover the cost of the wastewater treatment system.
Yes, through the read, there was a report to council a little while ago about this, and the reserve fund balance and the projected costs for the needed infrastructure are pretty close right now, albeit that's just estimates. We'll know more once we get actual tender pricing on these projects. If there is a cost overrun, there are various mechanisms available. Local improvement tax is one through the MGA, debentures, utility connection fees, things like that could be utilized throughout the community or in various locations of the community as appropriate for those who are using the infrastructure. It's probably a little bit premature to look at exactly what that mechanism would be, just because we don't know the actual costs, but it is something that administration is monitoring and would bring back to council at the appropriate time.
But council has some options to consider at that time if there were a shortfall.
Correct.
Question to the area councillor, because it would be those community members that would be shouldering the costs of infrastructure upgrades if there were insufficient. Do you feel like even if there was an awareness of that, would there be community support for the expenditure of reserve funds on these land costs?
It's hard to say what taxpayer wants. If it was explained in a fair process, I just think back to our last lagoon project, which was done in a hamlet. There was no reserve fund there. it funded out taxpayer dollar and a grant. So is it fair? Is it not? You know, we have other hamlets that have a debenture carrying cost from when we took them over. Gleason, I think Carsland has one too. So as long as it's a fair process, when we took over Muirfield, I definitely wanted to basically take the funds and keep it out there so we had that money because I knew we had to reinvest in it. Didn't really understand the lack of recreation in the area, to be honest, and then to see, and then it's come to council and we've tried to fill in the gap here and there. But for relative low cost, they've come up with a solution. Now, and I wanted to say this too, there's a lot of volunteer help that's already been out there. I mean, I had my kids and I out there, we were pulling posts for them. We did everything we could with our equipment and try to help out. They're not looking for a handout, they're just looking for help. They will try to get the new developer is going to try to help out as well. They're not just coming to us as a one-off. They tried for a grant program, they weren't successful, they're going to try again. So all of what's in there, I realize it's a big number, but that's just what they're looking at projected cost. They wanted to break it up into little bits, like I suggested to them, try to see where we can help, because to look at the whole thing as a whole to give the money, I didn't see the support to do that at the time. So that's why it is the way it is. But yeah, if it's fair, and I think council should come up, I've said this before, we should come up with a process that's fair for everybody. So when these one-offs come, we have, you know, you don't have a service, now you have a service. How do we pay for it? How do we do whatever? But right now it's treated as one-off.
Councillor Kemp.
On page 4, it says we're committing $500,000 of our own funds. We're requesting Wheatland County's support of the remaining 1.5 million by the end of 2026. On page 11, they have a spreadsheet there. The total at the bottom of page 11, $2,317,549. I didn't dream up $2 million. It's approximate, I know. I want to make sure the sewage system gets built. I'm not arguing against the recreation. There is nothing there, and if it was a different development, it would have been paid for by the developer. We picked up the land, but we still picked up the debt of no sewage system. And that's all I'm saying. I want to know that this sewage system is going through and we'll have the money to pay for it.
And I think administration has made it clear, and the government of Alberta has partnered in the preliminary work that needs to be done prior to the construction of that system, just like any complex system, and administration is advancing that, and as they have indicated, have been bringing reports back to council. And we are not considering the report yet on page 4. This is a separate request. There can be a second additional motion for council consideration based on the report that administration wrote starting on page 4, but that's separate and distinct from the consideration for this request. And of course, council collectively has decision-making on the scale and scope of investment in this project. Councillor Laverson.
You can say it's separate and distinct all you want, but it's all in one package. But I have a problem. We were or we're about to not be the developer. I'm not going to argue the fine points of that. So to me, we should treat this the same as we treat any other hamlet. I don't know that we've ever done this for any other hamlet, and administration can tell me if we have. And by Councillor Clausen's own admission, that the LOM is consisted of primarily double income families. So it's not like they're poor and need this by the sounds of what Councillor Clausen said. So I will not be in support of this because I think they're all related, and the final cost will end up being huge.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
There's a motion on the floor for 52,000. There's a further motion in the package for 71 and change, or almost 72,000. If that passes, that's all the motions that I'm putting forward. I asked for the whole process and project to be in there so everybody could see the scope of what they're doing. The HOA does have money set aside for this project. They have at least $500,000. They put it to their HOA meetings, which everybody's been invited to come if they want to hear. I think Councillor Kester's been there at one time years ago and seen the population and what they are doing. They've said to their people, they're like their own little council of the area. They provide certain services that we don't, but they chose to put recreation under their banner and take and run with it. And we're just working with them on that. I will say about the area, they are an upscale area. They actually pay for their own haulage pickup. They arrange for their own truck through the HOA fees. It has no fees to the county. It doesn't cost the county a dime. They're even part of the Drumheller solid waste system that they don't use. They haul us away. So they pay for their own executive what they want through the HOA. It is a unique system where we have our governing body and they have theirs, their own streetlights they pay for, things like that. So I'm glad that they took on recreation because there's a lot of people there, then there's a lot of need for it, and they've come up with their own solution. So for relatively low cost, we are going to help them out with a plan and design that they chose. And that's the most important thing. This is something they picked.
Councillor Priest.
So I'm content that the money that was put into the reserve fund came from lot sales while we were owning it, and a land sale that should come through shortly will top up that fund. So that money was put there for the use of the community. And I'm confident that our administration has got the cost of the wastewater system and future transportation requirements. They've considered that, and I think, like you say, $52,000 isn't going to break the bank. So I feel like, and we have options if you need to go to a different system for imposing a levy or a debenture or something if need be. But I think we have options, and I think this money came from lot sales will be used for the community. So I'm in support of it.
Just to follow up to the money going back is going to double down and give them money to reinvest in the projects in the area, which is services that we don't provide. But if there wasn't an HOA there, these people could come here and demand services that we don't currently require or offer. We could have that in any of our hamlets at any time. They pay for a lot of stuff that is over and above what we do currently.
Councillor Kester.
I agree this money come from Muirfield. I don't have a problem spending it in Muirfield. I just like to ask staff, can we afford both right now as it stands? Do we?
My apologies. Sorry, I did not hear that question. Could you repeat that question? Sorry.
I would just like reassurances from staff. Can we afford both?
Well, I think that
within the constraints of the reserve from Muirfield.
Yes, so through the chair, I think that question would be impossible for administration to answer just at this time. So there's definitely just moving parts, like the cost of the lagoon itself. We just don't know the final cost. We can definitely say how much money's in the reserve as of today, so around the 8.6 million. We did sell the lands, assuming that transaction goes through as well. We'll have more money in the reserve for that. But there is a lot of infrastructure that infrastructure requirements that still need to be completed in the Lakes of Muirfield. So until all that work is completed, unfortunately, we'll never know if there's a shortfall or a surplus. There are mechanisms, as kind of mentioned earlier during this conversation, about how we could recoup those shortfalls, like a local improvement tax or something like that. But again, we won't know until all that work's done, and the work required in the Lakes of Muirfield will take a number of years. So the second lift of asphalt, the sewage system, any other deficiencies that need to be completed. A lot of work that needs to be done, but there will be around 14 million probably. And then there's grants coming in from the government. So the engineering grant for the lagoon, we're waiting approval, I believe, on the actual construction for that grant, but you know, it's a promising sign to see that the engineering was funded. And then again, negotiations with landowners and so many moving parts. Unfortunately, I just can't give you a concrete answer, but hopefully that will at least provide you some insight of kind of what administration is looking at for the future of the Lakes of Muirfield Reserve and what kind of work is required. Definitely a lot of moving pieces and a lot of work that needs to be done that would be tendered out. So obviously, also depends on the tender prices that come back.
That's what I was kind of looking for. I know there's more asphalt needs to be put in there. There is a list of expenses. I know we don't have enough money in the reserve to do it now. We committed that reserve to get that done. There were deficiencies when we took it over. And now we're gonna, we got all this money and now we're gonna dip in for recreation. Doing that, council has to be aware, if we commit to this, are we going to commit to a local improvement tax? And they can have a debenture the same as the other communities have around here that wanted water, wanted sewer services. We committed to putting in a sanitary sewer system. We committed to doing the deficiencies in the hamlet. Going to spend it all up and start taxing them. I don't mind go ahead, buy the land. I could maybe vote for that, but that's a dead hard stop for me until I get these other answers. The land is something maybe you can't buy next year. I understand that. But the same thing can be said about our sanitary sewage system. We have an eye on a piece of land, but if we don't buy it when we want it, it maybe not be there. Land is number one. I'll give you that much. But where are we going to get the money to pay for it all? Without a I guess you would call it a budget of sorts. All our deficiencies, all our wants on one side and money on the other.
Councillor Bigger.
Yeah, I just want to mention that through pertaining to this motion that I'm very proud of the way that Lakes of Muirfield and Lyalta Community Club are working together. I know living in, we have a development and we have a hamlet, and having them work together is very beneficial. And I think this is a step forward to actually making a more liable or more a better community. The fact that they're doing all these things together, and I just wanted to mention that to them. That I'm very proud of them. They've taken on Lyalta and embraced it, and very proud of that. So I will be in support of this motion. Thank you.
Just administration, we just, not that in the last couple of years, we just put a new sewage lagoon in Rosebud. Did we have a debenture for the members of Rosebud?
Through the chair, we did not. So I believe that one, we may have used MSI grant funding. I cannot recall when that was done. I think that was completed in 2018.
No, it's later.
It's in the 2020 and 2021 budgets. And it looks like it was funded to a certain extent with provincial grants and then a transfer from a capital continuity. I'm just looking at the total budget, so I don't know exactly where, but there was no debenture proceeds for those years.
So maybe we should look at down the road, have a committee of the whole meeting and figure out whether or not we want to start throwing debentures on, like, how can you not have a debenture here and have a debenture there? So maybe we should try to straighten out, so make equity in this process.
Yeah, and I think that's what Deputy Reeve was referencing just some type of consistent process. We've had this conversation previously. So at times there are nuanced considerations with projects, but I think there was consensus or general consensus to develop a framework so that we have some consistency in applying for these. The Rosebud wastewater system in the 2021-2025 final capital budget, we expended $3.5 million or budgeted. I don't have actuals. Oh, actually there is an actual there. This is the 21 budget. 3.5 million was budgeted in 2020 with 963,750 actual, and 2.8 million budgeted in 2021. And it's just because I'm just looking at the composite budget. There is the provincial, conditional provincial grants and transfers from reserves. Looks like how we funded all of the wastewater projects in that capital year. So, Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I understand the hesitancy of some councillors here, but when I look at the worst case scenario, what could have happened in that area, the developer gave us the option to take it over. It was a risk. It was a high risk. I won't deny that, but it turned out for a positive, and we had, put some money aside. We could have ended up with a subdivision carried on with the same way that was auctioned off. All those lots. They could have been developed. We could have been in court fighting over them, trying to stop this, trying to get the sewer done, trying to get all that same thing that I sat in the same thing with the previous developer about. But it's worked out, and we are really lucky. And I thank council for taking the risk on that and supporting my motion back in the time to basically take over as a developer. It was a high risk. There's no doubt, but it has paid off. We are in a very good situation here. And of course, when more people come, more services are asked. This is the nature of the beast. We could have no development there right now and trying to keep things going and having to pay for the phase 1 and phase 2 overlays. We have the money for that. We've seen these reports, they've been there. Do we know the final numbers? Absolutely not. But I'm confident that we will have the funds to do it through the taxation of the area, because they do generate a lot of revenue.
Any other questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question.
We have to sign back in, so it happened.
It's okay. Take a moment. And that motion is carried. There was an additional report included under the notice of motion. I don't know if administration wants to speak to it. Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning, Council. Cody Zimmerman with administration, presenting the Lyelta Community Club request for in-kind work. And let's see if I can get this on the screen here. There we go. All right, so on March 18th, 2025, administration received a letter from the Lyelta Community Club and Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association requesting Wheatland County support for the Lyelta amenities expansion proposed for the Lyelta Community Hall lands. A copy of the letter, an estimate for the costs of the construction of the expansion plan, and a concept layout have been provided with the report for reference. There were two requests made for consideration by the county, which have been provided in the following points directly from the request letter This request for decision will only address the first request, and the second request will be brought back to council for discussion at a later date. So you can see on the screen there, just the two individual requests. First one for in-kind assistance for the east parking lot, driveway, and campground access, as well as rough grading of the sports field with a projected cost of $296,000. And then the second request for financial contribution for $1.5 million by end of 2026. Administration recently undertook a preliminary investigation of the hall grounds in respect to the request for in-kind assistance. The investigation specifically looked at construction of the east parking lot and rough grading of all the sports field area. Utility locates were obtained and excavation of several test pits were completed to determine topsoil and subsoil depths to provide an accurate estimate of the time and cost to complete the work with internal county forces for council's consideration. The following table provided within the report provides a detailed breakdown of the required equipment, number of days to complete the work, and the estimated cost to the county to complete the work. It should be noted that administration did not review the driveway or campground access's scope, as they were not identified at the time that the test pitting took place, and subsequently are not included in the estimate. I'll just scroll down so everybody can see that on the screen. Estimated total 8.5 days, $71,919.56. So 71,920, a round number. This estimate assumes that all required borrow can be attained on site, does not account for additional snake pitting if required. The cost of gravel required and its delivery to site is excluded from the estimate per council resolution CM 2024-07-35, which provided for the delivery of 200 ton of gravel to the site in kind. Some additional information for consideration. On July 2nd, 2024, at the irregular council meeting, council passed the following council resolutions pertaining to the Lyalta Community Center, which I will pull up on the screen here. So as part of the council resolution CM 2024-07-35, to provide 200 ton of gravel to the Lyalta Community Center in kind, council excluded the request to provide in-kind work on the hall grounds, as the lands are private property. Administration had included the following comments within that report. It is not recommended that county employees perform construction work or construct improvements on private, non-county owned properties. It is not typical of county practices. There are potential complications related to performing such work, for example, concerns of liability and warranty of in-kind work. Additionally, municipal access agreements will be required. Historically, the county may have supplied gravel for such community-related projects. However, the type of gravel that the county stocks is limited, and the project design specifications would need to be confirmed. This project would meet the criteria of existing county grant programs, specifically CERB and the Community Facilities Funding Grant Program. As recommended at that time, administration is again recommending against the use of county employees for the request to work on private lands. And then just as an additional note, the approved grant funding for 2025 that we identified specifically for the hall lands was provided as well. And there's two separate resolutions for council's, or alternate resolutions for council's consideration. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any information. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Any questions for administration?
Yeah, to administration, to Cody, is if we went ahead with this, I mean, we're talking a $72,000 contribution, which appears to save the Lyalta Community Club somewhere around 297. So it's like it's 400% return on our investment. But can this work be done without it adversely affecting county projects?
Through the chair, we always allow so many days for unanticipated things that pop up, and I'm sure we could fit it into the schedule as we would anything else that comes our way.
When we, and I realized we did the work for the outdoor rink and it was on our land, but you guys did such an amazing job. And it was nice. Everybody was so happy with the work that we did, and then it was short-lived. So that's kind of where this was spurred on. I think some of the warranty work and stuff, we could get an agreement saying that there is no warranty work. It'll be a one and done kind of thing. Like you get something drafted, I'd be very comfortable with that, with these guys, because it's donation time. Like I don't expect us to be warranting anything. With that, I'll make the motion that council direct administration to work with the Lyalta Community Club to complete construction of the east parking lot and rough grading of the sports field with internal county forces at an estimated cost of $71,920 to be completed in kind. And I just want to add, it'll be at the discretion of Public Works within their time frame, because I know you have a busy schedule, but whenever it will work, hopefully we have a long fall. Thank you.
Questions or discussion? Councillor LaPriest and then Councillor Kester.
I think I might be against this one just because of administration's concerns about historically not doing this kind of work on non-county owned land. I realize it's not a lot of money and it does save them, you know, it would cost us $72,000 and it would cost them almost $300,000. But I also see that the county has opportunities that they have availed themselves of through the CURB program and the community facilities funding grant, and those opportunities are ongoing. And I guess, Cody, would you be able to tell me the value of 200 tons of gravel? What was that value of that for in-kind?
Through the chair, the gravel is valued at $11.20 a ton with a 80-cent ton levy, so $12 a ton. So I'll leave it to Brian for the math.
Not much. Okay, $2,200. Oh. Yeah, I feel like they could do some phasing of the project, and I understand that it's a much needed service, and you know, those people have been living there quite some time without any amenities, and I get it. But I do think that there are other avenues of funding available through the county, so I might be opposed to this one.
I don't know if council appreciates my history. However, I can remember when the county gravelled roads out in the county gravelled roads, and you would come to an approach and you would put off a truckload of gravel in every approach for the landowner to spread at their county. Usually spread it because they dumped it and drove out of the yard, but it was up for the landowner. That was given, taken away. The county at one time, when there was fences pulled, would go in and grade all the fences down. That was taken away. County, they would still do fence grades, I believe, in county right-of-ways and road ditches. So if you have a fence in the road ditch, I think if you talk nice, you might get that graded down. Not a guarantee. The thinking at the time was, I won't give it all the thinking, but it was county equipment. And it wasn't made for private use. This is county equipment, private use. We're going back to what we used to do. I don't know if we have this equipment available to work. I know we had more equipment and we sold it. I would think this equipment's busy. I don't know if we can do it. It's only about, looks like a half a week's work, so probably fit it in. But this is different. We're using county public owned equipment on private land. And I can't agree to it because we took it away from everybody else in the county. There are other projects that the county could have helped on that didn't because it just wasn't part of the policy. I can't support this. There are other avenues. There's a project going on in Rocky Ford right now. The county could come in and do the groundwork. Not even ask. They just went over to Grays and got a contract from them. Because county doesn't work on private land. That's all I gotta say.
I support the motion. I do believe that we do have done county equipment on community-owned land because I know that Carsland, I believe the Carsland Community Ag Society owns the land that we did for the Bullarama and the tractor pull. County owns it? Okay, I was wrong there. But we do work at dust control and things like that for the Ag Society in Strathmore. So we have used our equipment on those roads. Maybe not to this extent, but I mean, just to save that community that much money, I feel like it's a good investment. Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion?
I think I heard a long time ago when the ball diamonds were done in Strathmore that we had excavators there and stuff and graders. You told me that story back in the day. It's for a community, like if it was something private, absolutely not. But for a community project at the discretion of staff, not given a timeline or anything like that, I really would like to see this move forward just because of the cost savings. And yeah, and I state again, I have no intention of us having any guarantee on our work. We'll do the best that we can. And I know our guys will do top-notch work as they can. There is a road building crew that's down the road about 2 miles right now. They could try to ask them to get equipment there or when somebody's in doing the water lines. But I mean, it's people, it's a short building season. And we do have 2 scrapers right now. I know that. Still left from before. So I'd hope you support this. It's kind of a one-off. And for the minimal investment, they get a big return. So, and it gives them a big step forward in their big design plan.
Can administration, like recognizing that the report identified potential complications performing work on private land, I anticipate there could be potential liability with doing so. Obviously, the reference to the warranty. We have insurance coverage for our operations. Does that cover our operations on private land or just on county-owned land?
Through the chair, we are fully covered insurance-wise, as a lot of our like culvert grading and stuff like that does happen on private land. The big thing is that the proper access agreements are in place that cover off those clauses for indemnity and liability and everything else. So as long as we could get that access agreement entered into, then I wouldn't be concerned from that standpoint.
Are there other potential complications that you could expand on for council, just to understand the full scope of the risk of proceeding with? Because I really respect the administration's position on like not recommending working on private land, but I want to understand the full scope of the risk of that.
For sure. So through the chair, there's a couple, I guess, unknowns, which leads to potentially higher risk. One being that there is no site plan, so we would just be kind of shooting whatever grade looks best to us at that point. There's no drainage plan, so where the water is going to end up, where it's going to run to, impacts of turning a field into a large graveled parking lot. We don't know where that runoff is going to end up, and hopefully not onto adjacent lands and then cause issues that way. Another big question mark is just the amount of soil required to build that parking lot back up. Stripping everything off and then snake pitting. Hopefully there's enough clay, because when you strip off the foot or so of topsoil that's there, obviously your parking lot's going to be below everything else and it'll just turn into a lake. So it needs to be built back up to grade so that it's not underwater all the time. So this is, from the test pitting we've done, we think there's enough material, but there's always a possibility that we're short. And then what happens after that. So whether or not they're going to allow us to dig and leave an open excavation there for the additional clay material or not, there's just some big question marks.
From your perspective, would there be ways to address that through the access agreement?
Through the chair, I don't think we could specifically address it through the access agreement because it's not really designed for that. It's more for just accessing the property and doing work on the property and covering off liability. There's things that we could do with the topsoil grading, putting berms and things around the parking lot to try and contain any kind of a runoff, things of that nature. We'd have to have quite a bit more fulsome conversation with the community association about what they're specifically looking for and the end product.
Thank you very much.
I just want to add one more thing because over the years being here, so there's some community halls that county owns, there's some that are owned by the communities, and it's kind of a mishmash of how we do things. If this was a failed one, like say during COVID, they basically threw the keys in and said, we're not doing this anymore, we could have ended up with it. And then it wouldn't be a problem, we could do it. So it's kind of one of those things, like community halls are only as good as the membership there. This one's thriving and growing faster exponentially. And they have plans to do that. And it is one-off, I agree, but if there wasn't such a savings by us doing it, and it is for the community, I think it's worthy to do it.
Other questions or discussion?
Just one comment.
If you can just turn your microphone on, certainly.
It's always a savings if somebody else does it.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Oh, sorry, just before that. It would be implicit in the motion that the required agreements would be entered into. Could we, sorry, I realize I already called the question. Could we amend the motion so that that was included, just so that, yeah, I apologize.
Through the chair to council, to add in for some of the concerns, and I don't know if it in the motion and if it was reflected that this project will require a development permit with stripping and grading with a stormwater management plan. And this report, what Cody has presented, only covers the cost of labor, but not the other ones, because they will have to hire an engineer to do the stormwater drainage, which may help with the design for some of the things that administration's concerns are. And just while we're at it, if that motion should include, because the development permit has a fee and they'll probably ask to have that waived, that could all be considered at the same time.
Just through the chair, administration realizes there's like quite a few moving parts. This one would just be to get the labor in kind done. The county does have standard procedures and processes that we would follow. It might be cumbersome to try to outline all the standard practices and procedures that we do. The one that isn't standard is the in-kind labor. So administration thinks that this motion is good, just as that really kind of puts together what we can and can't do outside of our standard operating procedures. So.
Okay, thank you. So the motion and the vote will continue. Just for clarity, it sounds like any requirements like an agreement would be part of that working with the Lyalta Community Club, and that they would be in place if this motion is to pass. Sorry, that motion is carried. Let's move to agenda item 5, consent agenda. Thank you, Cody.
I'll move approval of the May 2025 consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. And there were just a couple of minor textual edits that I sent to administration, but they don't change the nature of the minutes. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. There's no business arising from the consent agenda. We'll move to agenda item 7.1.
Good morning, Council. Brian from administration. On page 138 of your agenda package is the council resolution tracker. Anything in green is deemed complete. Anything in yellow is deemed ongoing. Just a couple notes I'd like to make. So Bill 50, as council is aware, it actually did receive royal assent on May 15th, 2025. So there's a couple of changes that administration will be making moving forward. So one of them has to do with the natural person powers that the CAO has. So it'll just be a little bit more reporting requirements onto all of council. So a good example right now is that if there's a fire somewhere in the county, let's just say a couple weeks ago there was a fire in Division 3. Typically what I'll do is I'll take that message from our fire consultant and I'll just copy and paste it to the divisional councillor. It's, you know, an hour away from Division 7. So, you know, not saying that the council wouldn't mind, but just don't want to, at that point, didn't want to bog councillors down with just that kind of thing. So that will be reported to everyone moving forward. And same thing with road concerns or road complaints. It just has to be to all of council. There is a little bit of gray area in this as well. So administration is going to bring a report back on the natural person powers. So a prime example would be if administration buys land, that should be reported to council. So there's two prime examples of land that the county purchased in 2024. So north of here, the county purchased I think it was 130 acres or 120. I can't remember the exact number of land. So that one, of course, did come back to council by council resolution, of course. However, there are other minor land purchases, such as when road construction does occur. So those small little strips that we have to buy just to extend the road allowance. So those technically should be reported on. Very interesting thing I read is all contracts also need to be reported to council. So just the scope I read on a report that is interesting is, so let's take the Village of Hazard versus the City of Calgary. So a $5,000 contract that the CAO of Hazard would sign, of course with council resolution behind it, that would be significant for the Village of Hazard. However, a $5,000 contract that the City of Calgary signs, that would be, you know, not significant in their budget. But the way that this bill is, says that all those contracts need to be reported. So at this point, I think administration's plan is going to bring forward just kind of our guidelines, what we think is reasonable on this, because it really isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray area. So I'll bring that forward to the next council meeting. It just did receive royal assent on Thursday. So it's not in the council resolution tracker, but that's a report that council can look forward to in the future. So if there's any questions about the council resolution tracker, please let me know. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accept the council resolution tracker dated May 20th, 2025 as information.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried, and thank you to CAO Henderson for the legislative update. Hopefully the regulations that will follow will maybe provide some further clarity. We'll move to agenda item 7.2.
Good morning, Council. Joel here from Financial Services. Just to go through 7.2, the county in-kind donations update for Q1 of 2025. This report for this quarter is relatively small. Most activity usually happens later in the year. So administration has listed, just as in prior quarters, the individual in-kind contributions that have been identified as of to date, along with a graph just showing the total historical contributions by each quarter. And you can see the quarter one of this current year, the $931 there. And staff are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
A motion that council accepts the in-county donation update Q1 2025 report as information.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.3. Councillor Kester first, sorry.
I don't know when to bring this up, but I think this is maybe a good time. Since we just had this motion couple back that we're doing in-kind work on private land, and we just finished doing our in-kind donations. I would like to have on our next committee of the whole meeting a possible policy on in-kind work on private lands moving forward. We have to talk about this. This isn't a one-off. I have lots of county people out there have asked me to do, and I say no, because we just don't do it. We don't have a policy. I'll make that a motion.
If you could just read the motion out for administration, please.
I would like to include in the next committee of the whole meeting in-kind, county in-kind practices in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Is everybody clear on the motion? We'll just give administration a moment. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Now we'll move to 7.3.
Hello, Council. Cody Zimmerman with administration again. Excited to present this one to you. It's something we've been working on for quite a long time and happy to share it with Council today for your consideration. The waste and recycling hauling proposal. A little background. Administration undertook a comprehensive review of the costs associated with the county's waste and recycling collection and hauling services provided all 8 of its waste transfer stations. This review specifically focused on the large roll-off bins that are rented on a month-to-month basis and hauled by a third-party contractor. These bins are vital for the success of Wheatland County's recycling and waste collection programs, being primarily utilized for the collection and transporting of metal, large furniture items, and miscellaneous residential bulk waste. Miscellaneous bulk waste being comprised of residential waste that is not classified as either recycling, compost, furniture, or bagged or boxed household garbage. The use of roll-off bins was introduced to the county transfer site several years ago for the purpose of reducing costs associated with hand loading and transporting items and to make sites cleaner and more organized. Having the bins on site also provides residents a place to dispose of items that would otherwise be required to be hauled directly to a landfill, either in Drumheller or Calgary. The success of Wheatland County's waste and recycling programs can be observed in the small number of incidents of illegal dumping that occur within county right-of-ways compared to other municipalities. Incidents of illegal dumping typically average only once to twice per month annually. Each waste transfer site currently contains 3 to 8 bins, depending on the volume of material being collected at each location. Wheatland County shipped 1,186 bins in 2024, with a peak of 130 bins being shipped per month through the summer and a low of 55 bins per month through the winter. The county's busiest site, Wheatland West, annually ships up to 60 bins throughout the month of August alone. Furniture and miscellaneous bulk waste are hauled to the Drumheller landfill, where the county is required to pay disposal fees for the miscellaneous bulk waste only. Disposal of furniture is covered through the annual requisition paid to the Drumheller District Solid Waste Management Association. Currently, the county does not pay for the disposal of metal, nor does it receive a benefit for the recycling of the material. It should also be noted that the county, per cost-sharing agreements with the villages of Fazar, Standard, and Rockyford, recoups 20% of all costs associated with the rental and hauling of bins and disposal of materials from the 3 associated waste transfer sites. Third-party contractor costs. So the following table outlines the annual total cost for the renting and hauling of the bins by a third-party contractor. I'll put that up on the screen for everybody. So as you can see, over the last year, well, over the last number of years, the cost have just continued to climb as the use and the need has continued to climb. And so this is just a snapshot in time over the last few years just to kind of highlight that trend upwards. So the internal hauling proposal. In an effort to reduce the overall costs of the program and relieve rising costs associated with inflationary pressures and potential program expansion with the proposed construction of the Lyelta Area Waste Transfer Site, administration has developed the following proposal to bring this service in-house to be completed with internal county forces. In order to provide the bins and hauling services internally, the county would need to purchase 50 30-yard roll-off bins and 2 Class 8 hook lift trucks, as well as add 1 full-time heavy truck operator and 1 seasonal heavy truck operator to the organizational chart. The purchase of the large volume of bins would allow for operational spare bins, which would be switched out at locations when picking up full ones, allow ability for future expansion of the service, either through increased use at the existing sites and or the addition of a new site, and would allow for cost savings through their utilizations for other public works uses and projects. An opportunity to purchase the required bins has been presented to the county by the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association. A breakdown of the cost savings to purchase and retrofit the used bins versus buying new will be provided later in the report. An analysis of the monthly bin hauling patterns has highlighted that 2 truck units would be required to keep pace with the required frequency of hauling bins from April through November, and that only 1 truck unit would be required over the winter months. This means that the addition of only 1 full-time heavy truck operator and 1 seasonal heavy truck operator would be required to implement the program. The following table outlines the associated costs to operate the program internally on an annual basis. So I'll pull that up on the screen. So by moving this service in-house and utilizing internal forces, it is projected that the county will save approximately $298,736 per year in operating costs, in comparison to the 2024 actual contracted costs. If accounting for the annual amortization of the required equipment, the county is still estimated to save approximately $249,736 per year. I just will note in that table, you'll see we added in a reduction for metal recycling, for recovery on that, as moving to internal, we would be hauling that metal to a recycler and getting costs back for what we don't get now. Initial investment. A total initial investment of $1,015,491, including contingency, is required over a 2-year period to bring the program into full operation. The following table is required, details required capital investment and the year in which it is required. So I'll just throw that up for everyone. As part of the cost analysis conducted for this proposal, administration initially priced the purchasing of new roll-off bins. However, the cost was determined to be quite prohibitive, requiring a total investment of $792,500. As previously noted within the report, the county was recently presented an opportunity to purchase the required bins from the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association at a purchase price of $3,000 per bin. Though these bins are used, the total cost to purchase and retrofit them to like new condition totals $312,070, including contingency. This equates to a savings on the initial investment of $480,430. Due to the bin purchase opportunity, the payback or break-even timeframe for the program is estimated to be between 3.1 and 4.1 years to cover the total initial investment costs. Program rollout. So following the purchase of the required bins from Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association, The county will begin the retrofitting process of the bins, which includes the removing of the roofs, filling the side doors, repairing any deficiencies, and repainting. The process is anticipated to take approximately 12 and a half months to complete all 50 bins, meaning that all bins will be ready to put into service by July 2026. Equipment would be ordered in January of 26 following the approval of the interim 26 capital budget. It is anticipated that delivery will take 8 to 10 months, meaning that trucks would arrive between August to October of 26, and staff would be hired following delivery of the truck and equipment, and the program would commence shortly after in fall of 26. Should council approve of and wish to roll out the program sooner than currently proposed, council may opt to approve the required budget for the trucking equipment in 2025, opposed to waiting for the 2026 budget approval, which would allow for the equipment to be delivered in early 2026, with the program commencing as early as April, phasing in all sites following that as the bin retrofitting is completed, which basically we can phase in sites as we complete the bins. Alternate resolution wording has been provided should council choose to move that direction. That concludes my report, and here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the RFD?
I love the idea and I like the cost savings, but I have a question about the life cycle of a bin. How often do you think they would need to be replaced? And then my second question has to do with that cost. Would we be able to get them at that cheaper rate, or would be looking at the, like I calculated, if it's 792,500 for 50 bins, they'd be 15,850 each. So that just, if you can give me an idea of what the turnover and future costs would be.
For sure, through the chairs. So yeah, the purchase of the used bin would be $3,000. It's about the same amount to retrofit it, so we're about $6,000 all in on those. Basically restoring it to like new condition, so we're giving it 15 to 20 year kind of time frame on those. For a brand new bin, we're purchasing at, it's the last estimate we got was about 15,800 a piece. And again, 20-year lifespan. The beauty of a bin is it's a big chunk of steel, so you can weld on it and repair it as needed. You can always repaint it. So there's definitely opportunity just to keep expanding that life out. And then also you don't have to replace all the bins all at once. You just, buy a few here and there as you need them to replace out the ones that, are get beyond repair.
So I'm just looking at the numbers. Why wouldn't we borrow the money, like take the $1 million out of and get this program going right now, because it's going to take us, then we can start the program as of January or beginning of 2026. Because if we wait until the 2026 budget year and make our order at that point in time, the majority of the hauling that we're going to do of the bins that we're going to get hauled at $500 a piece is going to be by another contractor. So I would I don't care how you slice it, it makes fiscal sense to get this, if we can get this on the road 6 months earlier, I'm all for getting it on the road. So I'll listen to everybody else, but I'm willing to make that alternate resolution. It just makes financial sense to me.
Deputy Reeve Clausen, and then we'll go to administration to respond.
Thank you. This came up at Drumheller District Solid Waste. We had a report from our administration that we had these bins that were sitting in the back corner, and we were like, what are we going to do with them? I had no idea that our operations were interested in it. And then I heard that, and I was kind of like, oh, what's going on? And they had thought about this for years, but the prohibitive cost was the bins. And then it's like, so at Drumheller District, putting on my hat there, we had a price that we had, which will offset our costs for post-closure. We'll put this away for the future, so it'll could in theory lower our per capita costs in the new budgets. So that money will go there. Those bins, I believe, were paid for by a grant years ago. Can't really know for sure. Unless Ben was here, he would probably know. But they've been sitting in the corner, haven't been of use. And all this has come about because of the EPR changes and things like that. Like there's a lot of stuff that we used to do. There's even some more bins that are coming up that were cardboard bins and stuff that we had around the new, because the new regulations are under a provincial contractor, there's stuff that they won't use. So there could even be more stuff that comes up in the future. But you're just uncovering it because it's been Drumheller District's been operating for years and years and years and has a vast area. And as this stuff comes in and you're like, oh, what are we doing with that? What are we doing with that? But I like it because we're taking something that was a waste product from someone. We could at Drumheller sell it to a private entity. And the board made the decision to set a price and it was all approved and everything. And they're very excited that and hopeful that Wheatland will take them. And because it provides a good service for our area for sure. So I'm really happy with this. I'm glad to see that staff are looking ahead. And I have no problem in getting this forward as fast as we can. So
We'll go to admin to address the question from Councillor Eichert.
Thank you. Through the chair. So yes, if we did approve the full amount today and input in our order, we would receive those trucks in early 2026 and potentially be able to roll out as early as April of 26, obviously just depending on when that delivery date is for those vehicles. So we would be able to, we kind of figured about a bin a week. We can work our way through retrofitting. And I should kind of note, and I appreciate that you mentioned that they were cardboard and paper bins because it kind of leads to why these bins are in such good condition and why this is so viable because they have roofs on them currently. And so the insides never saw any weather, right? So there's no deterioration of the steel, which makes this all the more viable to retrofit them and so cheap to do so.
Councillor Kester.
So if we approved the budget for this year and you would get the trucks next year probably, would you be able to put them to use right away? Both of them are, like you said, April, but we would have bins and stuff and enough work.
Yes, through the chair, we should have enough bins completed by that time frame that we would be able to phase in the majority of the sites. Probably not all of them by April, but we would tackle the highest volume sites first and then phase in the smaller sites as the bins get completed.
Any other questions or discussion?
Well, I will move that council approve an increase of $1,015,491 to the 2025 capital budget for the purchase and retrofitting of 50 roll-off bins from Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association, and for the purchase of two Class 8 hook lift trucks to be funded from the fleet reserve, and further that council approve the addition of one full-time heavy truck operator and one seasonal heavy truck operator to the organizational chart.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. There's a motion on the floor. Any questions or discussion?
I'm happy to support this. I think it's going to increase the service levels within our county and at the waste transfer sites. Amazing because it's being sitting on the board and Councillor Larson was on there as well. Is the amount of stuff that gets moved around is amazing in this county and it works with the villages. It's a service that we basically provide for all and happy to support this. And the hook lift truck actually, you'll find that there's a flat deck for them. And for moving equipment around, it's so much safer to load it on the ground. You grab it, chain it, and hook it on. I've ran them. They're wonderful machines to run.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. And that motion is carried. That brings us to agenda item number 8. I will move us into closed session under FOIP section 16. And I'll call the question. Thank you. That motion is carried. We'll move us out of closed session and call the question. That motion is carried. Motions arising from closed session.
I move that council authorize the REEV to sign a letter of support for Recognition Energy Transition Incorporated. Ready.
Reconciliation.
Reconciliation, sorry.
Yeah, you got it. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. And that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.